Welcome everybody to the LaunchLab. We're excited to have you all here. I'm just going to quickly give you an overview about the LaunchLab and one or two things we are doing, because I know that the rest of the conversation is much more interesting for you guys. So just bear with me for a few seconds. So the Stellenbosch University LaunchLab, our mission is to help early stage startup founders by building successful companies by facilitating valuable connections with strategic partners. That's like our elevator pitch. Now, the benefits for startups joining this community is they've got 24/7 access to this space. We've got a caring community, everybody shares their learnings and help each other out. There's professional services, printing, meeting rooms. We've got structured programs. One of the bigger benefits is to be affiliated with a reputable brand. So for a startup to attract a client, it's much easier for LaunchLab first, even more so to Stellenbosch University LaunchLab days. We've got a lot of these inspirational events happening monthly and by semester. Then we also have interesting people here with money that walk around and shop, do some shopping for some funding exercises. We also help you to validate your progress and to see that you're not actually progressing. So it's to help you know what you don't know. So just some stats since 2015 when we started. The residents in the LaunchLab has supported 377 jobs, created 122 of them. To date, we've supported 148 startups. Currently, we have 62 as incubated. There's some logos. I don't know if you can spot any of your favorites that you didn't know is here. There's guys that build satellites, there's guys that play with machine learning and machine vision, and then we had people making ice cream. So there's a very diverse group of people here. Okay, the space, just quickly, you see what it is, but this presentation usually gets done in a corporate boardroom. But we've designed the space with collaboration in mind. It's professional, but yet quirky. We've got a fully equipped makerspace behind those doors now. And as I've mentioned, the community is really cross-functional and learn from each other quite nicely. And then we have excellent coffee, big thing, and great food. Just something I want to quickly get into is the corporate innovation. We assist innovation-seeking corporates identify, evaluate, experiment new business models and solutions through startup engagement. Here, Chris is from Number Boost. They're busy with Mercedes-Benz building an app that uses machine vision to determine scratches on cars and the value of those repairs. And a corporate would take ages of doing that, and they've done it in 3 months. So just on the corporate side, last year we've had 4 residents invested by LaunchLab clients. We had 8 commercial agreements with the clients, and total prize money paid out was 1.2 million. And we incubated 24 residents specifically for our clients. Since 2015, we've had more than 600 pitches, entered competitions, 13 challenges. We had 52 winners and 12 commercial engagements from those challenges. So what's in it for a startup to enter these competitions? It's access to a corporate. A corporate can give you quick access to a market and quickly scale, something a startup really struggles with. So corporate has that captive market. They can really accelerate you. We're part of a cohort, so people sharing their learnings and supporting each other. A lot of structured programs. It's proven programs that are practical, it helps you build the business, not just education. Then we also have a measurement of the progress, so you know what you don't know, how you're going through that. And then lastly, just so you're all excited now to become this amazing new startup, challenges that's upcoming in the next semester is the InsurTech Challenge from Santa. They're very serious about finding innovative solutions that's consumer facing as well as internally in their own operations to keep the business improving and get them sleeker. Mercedes-Benz is again running a manufacturing challenge. This year they're focusing on really more ideas, more concepts, less advanced startups. So it's a good opportunity for somebody, a graduate or a young professional that wants to change careers and perhaps are interested in getting into Mercedes-Benz in a very innovative, interesting way. And they're looking for anything in their manufacturing plant that can improve efficiencies, logistics, or using all the data they have to predict maintenance. Then WineTech they've got a wine innovation challenge. So they're looking for any ideas and technologies to improve products, processes in the wine industry. They're going to have a wine-a-thon to kick that thing off. It'll be interesting. Okay, so that's just quickly about the LaunchLab. I'm going to hand it over now. He's going to give us an update about what he's been doing in Switzerland. Then I think there's a panel discussion to follow. This is now over to Jacques.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. David?
Hello.
Okay, good. Just be patient, we just want to set up here. Oops.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. We are also recording this so that we can, I know it's university holiday, so it's not the perfect time for a meetup, but this is a time that we just wanted to pull through, but we're going to make this available to the rest of the MIIA community on the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa website as well. The events page, the video, the presentation, and all of that. The core part of this today is really the panel discussion. So we've got some really good, interesting speakers that are going to talk to the topic here, which is really about artificial intelligence. How can we use AI and smart technologies for business and sustainable development goals? And initially, when I put the agenda together, it was more focused on sustainable development goals. But then Philip said, he's the CEO of LaunchLab back there. We got to bring business in. Business is a startup, but this is perfect. So I kind of wear two hats. Obviously, the one is around the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, which is a non-profit organization that's really is very open. We partner with all other organizations because our vision is really around how to transform Africa through the use of data science, smart technologies, and so forth. And we want to build a community. And we're very excited about the Deep Learning Indaba. Who's been at the Deep Learning? Well, Chris, obviously. But who was at the Deep Learning Indaba X in Cape Town, UCT? There's a few people, yep. And that was an awesome event. And there's a very exciting event coming to Stellenbosch University September. So they expect something like almost 600 people. I think there's about 1,300 people that applied. But then there's another exciting event that's happening just before that. That's the AI Expo, and Nick Bradshaw is here. So, and there's a big workshop that's for free for students and all of that. So you can actually talk more about that as well. So that's pretty exciting as well. So that's for the business community, startups, etc. And we've got a lot of LaunchLab is going to be involved with that as well. But anyway, so a lot of exciting events are coming. So from a MIIA side, we love to collaborate with all these kind of organizations and businesses. There's also something exciting that's happening. You will hear more about this later on. Who knows about Kaggle? Okay. So Kaggle, for those that don't know, Kaggle is it's I think it was started in Australia by Australian, but it's based in the US, and it's really around data competitions. It's like an open data platform for competitions. You've got corporates submitting data sets, and they've got these competitions, and they've got data scientists and machine learning and AI people that's participating and vying for, well, there's prize money at stake and all of that. Now we're going to, Zindi is a platform similar to that for Africa, and it's more focused on African data sets and all sorts of different things. So that's very exciting, and there's going to be an announcement also at the Expo around that. But MIIA is also looking at partnering with them as well. Now, this particular presentation, I was invited by actually two conferences, but I was invited by United Nations organizations. There was a few. ITU, they think it's about International Telecommunications something, but they are involved in organizing a lot of these UN events, and there was most of the UN organizations was represented. And what I'm going to do is just to give you a kind of a little bit of a talk. It's actually already on the MIIA website. The video to this talk that I did there is also available. So here I will just give a shortened version, and we can also keep it very interactive. We've got questions and so forth. I know there's people that's got knowledge on sustainable development stuff, initiatives and stuff, so we can really engage. But I think when we do the panel discussion, we can sit here and we'll keep it very open. We can keep it super interactive. I'll moderate as well, but you can come in as well. Okay. So the one side is MIIA. The other side is I've got also an AI company called Cortex Logic, which is an AI engine for business. We sponsor a lot of these MIIA events, but MIIA is open to anyone, any other company that want to get involved. It's there. So we had a lot of events, actually a few events at PwC in Cape Town, one and also in Joburg at their new offices there at Waterfall, which was fantastic. It was about 100 people there. It was an awesome event. The other one in the Waterfront was the same. But IBM is sponsoring hackathons. Chris was actually involved last year. That was a cool event, and you were also in that event. And Alex Conway with you. And but anyway, so we actually want to make a step change as well with MIIA. So I think there was a lot of events and there was an hackathon there and so forth, but so you can expect more over the course of the next year, from here on forward. We're looking at a new board, new people involved, and so see if we can play a bigger role. Anyway, back to this presentation. So my personal massive transformative purpose is really around, well, I've built my whole career on AI, and well, I was at Stellenbosch University. I was also a senior lecturer, researcher in AI. I did a PhD in AI at Stellenbosch University, and then went to find my first company called CSN Systems. And yeah, so Philip knows a little bit about that because he was on the board as well with HPD and stuff at that time. But anyway, so at that time it was already about how can you apply AI machine learning to solve business problems. So we started straight away in doing that. I sold that company to General Electric in 2011. And then I had to work there for a few years, but then started Cortex Logic, MIIA, and there's a few initiatives. So we live in a very interesting world of the Googles, the Facebooks, the Ubers, the Airbnbs. You see a lot of disruption happening. And what we've realized is you need to innovate on the business model level, big time. And everywhere there's data, and there's opportunities to monetize data. And you can use that also for social good, and you can obviously create businesses from that. So that's exactly the space that we operate in, is to say how can we use non-profit organizations and use AI and smart technologies to actually make an impact, but then also from a business side, how can we solve real world problems as well? And sometimes it's working together. So there's a few, we're also looking at working with government, working with non-profit organizations, etc. And to solve bigger problems, you need all the stakeholders as well. Anyway, so that's a little bit about that. So what I did for this, and there's two, it's worthwhile if you're interested to, I've actually posted 2 LinkedIn articles. If you go to just my LinkedIn profile, you can go to articles, but there's one that was on the AI for Good conference, and then there's one on the policies and future strategies, and that was very interesting. That was at the United Nations as well, and there's a lot of feedback there. I'm giving feedback in terms of, and it was just great meeting some of these very interesting people as well. That's already making impact elsewhere in the world. But anyway, at the AI for Good conference, I've just selected a few industries. If you think about the Sustainable Development Goals, you can just Google that as well, the SDGs. There's 17 of them. And what I did was just to say, we are involved in a few others as well. I didn't mention the financial inclusion part, but what we did was to say, let's just focus on health, water, smart education, and smart technology services. And I was participating in the smart cities track. There was 4 tracks. The one was health, the one was on smart cities, but you can read more about that in that article and LinkedIn post. So what I did was just to communicate what's happening in Africa. I was the only African representative. There was some ministers and so forth, but they've invited me as an AI expert to participate, but there was no other people really from Africa on panels or speakers and so forth. So I was just giving some feedback. And this is some of the things that I did in that one session, and just speaking about this. So let me just quickly go in there. So I was just looking, saying, okay, we don't want Africa to be left behind. So how can we use smart technologies to make an impact and a difference? We talk about all these smart cities in Europe and China and everywhere, but what does it mean for Africa as well? We need a lot of infrastructure that needs to be sorted out. We had a drought here as well. How do we solve all these things? And there's so many things that you can do. So what I did was just to actually just provide a little bit of insight into some of the things that we're busy with. And at least some of the things that I'm busy with as well. And I mentioned the MIIA as well as a community. I mentioned Zindi as well, that will be launched soon as well. And that was all part of the AI community and data platform for Africa. And that addressed more the 17th Sustainable Development Goal around partnerships for the goals. And they realized we live in this world where we need to collaborate. We can't just be isolated, too exclusive. So I think it was Accenture has got a very interesting slide that I typically also talk about, where on the x-axis you've got collaboration, the y-axis you've got innovation, and they've interviewed a lot of companies and organizations. And a lot of companies was really sitting here where there's no real collaboration and innovation, or maybe doing a little bit of collaboration but no innovation, or doing innovation but no collaboration. And where you need to be in this world, where you need to move fast and quick, is right there. We need to do collaborative innovation. That's why if you look at corporates, they need a partner and they need to move quickly as well. Klaus Schwab, the president of the World Economic Forum, said that it's not the big fish that eats the small fish, it's the fast fish that eats the slow fish. So it's really about speed and moving quickly, and that's why agile companies, startups are so important, play such an important role. So one needs to be agile and move quickly. Okay, so yeah, so these are the things that I talked about. So I talked a little bit about water and smart technology services, healthcare and smart education, and this particular slide was just summarizing that. But now, and here is how I mapped it, because this is the things that we've talked about the AI for good. It was AI and satellite imagery, is AI and health, AI and smart cities, communities, and trust in AI. Trust is becoming important. Ethics, can we trust the systems? So there was actually a very interesting track, and I wish I could spend more time there as well. But I was involved in the AI and smart cities, communities track. And you can look at the example use cases. So with satellite imagery, they talked about show potential of AI to map poverty and aid with natural disasters using satellite imagery. Very interesting session. It also tied in a little bit with the water initiative, because the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, they were focused on saying, well, they were saying that they're going to use satellite imagery to create this water platform for the world. Just going to look at it. They want to try and use that as one of the inputs as well. So, but there was so many other use cases as well. Then AI and health, they talked about the opportunity for AI to help achieve universal health coverage. Smart cities is how AI could assist the delivery of citizen-centric services in smart cities. And then trust in AI is about helping achieve transparency and explainability in AI algorithms. So that's getting a lot of research and a lot of focus as well. And I've just mapped some of the things we're busy with to that as well. Okay, so I'll skip some of this stuff. So the MIIA thing, I probably don't need to talk too much about this here, because you can read about this on the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa website. And there's an events page that you can go through and see all the stuff that's happening. We are signing up partners. Last week I was at a SAS event as well, and they want to get involved with MIIA as well, and they want to partner with Cortex and a few other things as well. So everybody's trying to position themselves, and they realize they need to collaborate and move quickly. We've got also JBRs, joint business relationships, with PwC, Deloitte, those type of companies as well, to help to operationalize. And this is just the name of the game. So we're also a Microsoft partner, working with Google, working with IBM, working with these companies as well. But MIIA, they are also supporting these kind of initiatives and see the big picture. This is just showing some of the growth path. And what's quite exciting is we're not only looking at South Africa. So there's a very fantastic initiative by one guy called Bayu in Nigeria. He's the Chief Transformational Officer of MTN in Nigeria, but he founded Data Science Nigeria, and what he's doing there is unbelievable. He's creating a proper ecosystem around data scientists and so forth. And I'm actually going to go to Nigeria, and we're going to have further discussions, and I'm going to further participate there. But we've actually had sessions together and helping one another. They've got big boot camps of 150, 200 data scientists that they put together, and lots of great initiatives there. If you go to the MIIA website, you will also talk, I did this a few years ago, but just looking at what is the problems in Africa. And this speaks to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And so this was just, you will see this image also on the MIIA website, with just talking about that, and there's some projects listed there as well. We want to actually get projects now properly launched. We've got people from even Tunisia that want to get involved in all sorts of interesting projects. There's Nigeria, Kenya, and so forth. So, so what we are working on is to actually get proper social responsibility investment money. There's a lot of money lying around. We were just busy with a deal of $350 million investment in South Africa, just around social responsibility investment. We're looking a lot more opportunities like that where we can channel money in the right direction. Okay, this is Zindi, so Kaggle of Africa. So XU Analytics is the other company that's also involved, is actually involved in funding this, so just want to mention that, so you'll hear more about that. So I'll make the slides, well the slides I'll make available on the website, so you can have a look at that. And then I just wanted to mention, we're quite excited about health, and we envisage this kind of multi-sided ecosystem where you've got producers and consumers, and what you need is, you need to unlock the value from data and analytics. So, and you need AI and smart technologies to help unlock that. So the typical elements of value exchange is data, insights, applications, analytics, services. You want to create a whole kind of like app store type of environment around this. There's a company in the US called 23andMe that's, for instance, selling to some of these, I think Pfizer, or some of these pharmaceutical companies. There's valuable information and data that they can make available, so you can create better drugs. It's all about precision medicine. We're also involved in a startup called Mosaic. We're working with Professor Musa Mslonga from UCT, where we are focused on precision medicine, oncology specifically, and where Cortex Logic is actually involved as an AI engine. And so there's these kind of things happening, but there's a broader ecosystem. It's not just companies, it's the private sector, it's the public sector. There's many things happening. To give you an idea, the South African Medical Research Council, they're busy with the Beijing Genome Institute, BGI, to get sequencing machines as well. So and if you apply those sequencing machines, you generate lots of data, and you can unlock value from that. But there's many other things happening. Next Biosciences are doing great work as well. But we're looking at getting the universities involved, startups involved. There's non-profit organizations like Geneva. They are digitizing clinical records and all sorts of things. They're a non-profit organization linked with, they work tightly with government as well. But so there's many players, and you need to collaborate with all these players to create those win-win scenarios. Water is a big problem here, so we've created a company called Water Mathematics. That's part of it. That's the solution. You need a whole ecosystem. You need, again, private, public sector collaboration, PPP, that type of partnerships to get things going. So there's, I don't say too much about that, but there's some very exciting things happening there. And maybe the last thing, and I will end off here, is just about, I think we need to disrupt. Education is incredibly important for Africa. Because we want to compete internationally, we don't want to be left behind. It's absolutely critical for us to make sure that we that more people get access to education, proper education. And I'm just thinking, there's a lot of kids that's got access to Coursera and YouTube and so forth. There's a lot of good information there. So you can, there's so much. If you've got access to the internet, I mean, say for instance, we've got a scenario where everybody's got access to the internet. We can leapfrog. So I think we need some disruption in terms of that part of that from a telecommunication perspective. So that's what this is what I think it was 2 years ago, I talked about everyone should have affordable access to the digital world. We need extreme acceleration of 21st century skills. So, and it's two things, apart from the fundamental literacies, it's dealing with changing environments and dealing with complex environments. So our kids need to adapt quickly. We need to adapt quickly. We talk about life-wide, lifelong learning. So those things are very important. And I've got some ideas in terms of smart technology, center of excellences that we need, and all of that kind of stuff. There's so many things. Education needs to be disrupted big time. And I think in Africa, we need to do it even faster than anywhere else if we don't want to be left behind. So I think this is something that's really critical, and we need a lot of stakeholders to help solve this. But there's some really exciting stuff going on as well. But yeah, so I'll skip some of this. I just shared some of that, the broader vision around that. Okay, I'll skip some of the Cortex stuff. Yeah, and then the last part was just on smart cities and empowered citizens on the rise. So Cape Town could really be a smart city, probably one of the first really smart cities in South Africa. And we are looking at working with them as well on that front. But there's a lot of players. PwC is involved. There's a few players involved. Anyway, I think I'm going to end here. So I would like to call on the panel. So we're going to have a discussion around Sustainable Development Goals. So we've got people. I think you need to introduce yourself as well. So Nick, if you can come forward. Orny, Peter, Chris, Helga. We see. I think that's the full panel. So let's just get a. See if we can. If you guys can move, yeah, just bring a chair. Thanks. Let's move in there. Yeah, that's fine. You can actually. What we can do is to actually. Okay, we'll move in. Philip, can we see everyone there with that? Should I move a little bit across?
Nick's a little bit on the
okay, okay, maybe move a little bit. Yeah. Okay, let's just get this thing out of the way. There we go. Oh, this should be switched on now. So we can just move a little bit this way. Okay, awesome. Okay, I think let's just first start. Helga, if you can introduce yourself to what you do and so forth, and then we're gonna everybody just doing that very quickly. So.
Hello, my name is Helga. Data science practitioner. Doing that for quite a number of years now. I was also at Stellenbosch University at some point. I was in the MIIA lab, just when that was starting out.
Engineering.
I was
Applied mathematics.
And since then, we're involved with quite a few companies like Mixit, SnapScan, Alexis. We got my own little one-man data science consultancy for our times. These days, I'm fully engaged with a Cape Town company called Hammandshand as a data scientist.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris. I'm a nerd at ECT. Currently my last year PhD in computational neuroscience. If you know what that is, please talk to me afterwards. There are very few people. Normally it's like, it's something to do with the brain, right? Yes. I also I work part-time in a number of places, so Number Boost was mentioned. We're very engaged with LaunchLab, that's where it started. And I also have my own company with intelligence. Part of the MIIA community, help organize events, hackathons, help with the Indaba X. So if you keep a lookout for the deep learning Indaba. Yeah, and I do a lot of research on neuroscience-based stuff, and then apply a whole bunch of AI-based stuff. So it's very two different areas of expertise there. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Hi, my name is Peter Wilson. 15 years experience in the geospatial engineering field, working in engineering. And in the last 2 years, I've digressed my career to data science, particularly geospatial data science. And in the last 2 years, we've been working on 3 POCs that are internationally based. We're collaborating with our offices in Melbourne, Australia, and New Zealand. And as of next month, I'm a free consultant. Working in geospatial data science and data science environment and looking for new opportunities. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Bonnie. I am not a data scientist. I am a financier. I came to the artificial intelligence and the blockchain world about 1.5 years ago. I've been in what's called impact finance for almost 10 years. Impact finance or impact investing or socially responsible investing or all the other names that go along with it really looks to see how you can allocate capital towards creating social and environmental outcomes. So I've been working on that for a long time, and to be honest, I was slightly frustrated with how far the field had come in what seemed to me a long time, being a very impatient, almost millennial. And so really turned to this world of emerging tech to figure out how I could use these technologies to apply them to the problems that we have in the space. So I teach this. I teach here, or not here. I normally say here because we're here, but this is Stellenbosch. I teach at UCT. I teach at the London School of Economics, and I teach at Oxford University. I'm a fellow at all those universities in impact finance. I have my own consulting company called Intelligent Impact that works with funders, governments, high net worth individuals, foundations, basically anyone looking to apply technologies to impact finance. And what I'm working on right now, which we might get a chance to talk about, is building a global smart funding marketplace for funders to buy social outcomes via blockchain.
Wow.
I wanted to say wow.
I'm feeling really inadequate. My name's Nick. Yeah, I'm a child of the 70s, so I don't know, maybe up there with Jacques. But I started out as a chemist a long time ago when I had hair. I'm from the UK, married a South African, that's why I'm here. And I'm an entrepreneur. And I've worked in the software industry for 20 years, so I've seen quite a lot of change. I think the last 3 years in this industry has been phenomenally rapid, and I'm very interested in the application of real-world AI, mainly in the business space. I'm also a community builder, picking up on Jacques' observations and comments that progress will be through collaboration and it will come from the bottom up rather than the top down. And we're trying to build with the AI Expo, which is the event we're running in September. That is just one part of a bigger community that we're building. We're trying to make an inclusive community, so everything from students right through to company directors, both from an entrepreneurial perspective but also from big business, bringing investors, bringing other partners. We've got the LaunchLab partnering with us. I think people take for granted that the world of commerce, the buyers know who all the suppliers are, and actually that's not the case. We spoke to a very large organisation here who weren't even aware of the people that can help them locally in South Africa, so they went off to America to find solutions to problems, and when they told me what those problems were, I pointed out a company in Stellenbosch, a company in Cape Town, a company in Joburg that could solve those problems for them. So part of what we're trying to do in our community is educate corporates around what is going on in the startup space, what is going on in the finance space, what sort of models that you can adopt now to get innovation in your organisation, extrapreneurial, intrapreneurial, radically agile. And so those topics are the things we're talking about in our community, and you're welcome to join. We have a LinkedIn forum called AI Expo Africa. Please join, and hopefully we'll see you in September.
Great. Thanks, Nick, and everyone here. So I think so we've got a really diverse group of people here, so which is awesome. So we've got at least two. Well, actually, you're a data scientist as well. You wear multiple hats like I do as well. I love neuroscience, by the way. I think a lot of the breakthroughs in AI will come from computational neuroscience, I think. So I think it's got a very important role to play. And Orny, Nick, well, obviously there's a lot of things that we share as well. But Orny, I want to start with you specifically because I think the topic here is about AI for business, and we started off with Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm going to open up. I'm going to start with a question here, but I want to open it up to you as well. So we'll give you the mic as well. If you've got questions, just raise your hand. And I know there's people that's also in this space around sustainable development as well. So please feel free, absolutely free to communicate. If you want to say something, make a comment or a question, let me know. So if you think about, you talked about blockchain and AI, and how do you specifically see, okay, first of all, what are the low-hanging fruit opportunities that you see that you're involved with? Just quickly on that, and maybe start there. I've got some more questions after that.
Sure, I think you did a great job of looking at some of them. So Sustainable Development Goals, which probably most of you are somewhat familiar with, 17 goals to be able to achieve by 2030. All governments in the world, even North Korea, have signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals. It's pretty much commonly believed that they're not going to be achieved without step changes in technology. They require potentially significant changes for billions of people. The first goal is to eradicate poverty, so extreme poverty, which we're actually relatively close to doing, much closer than we have been. So where I'm seeing the application is some of the areas that you've mentioned. Where there's the low-hanging fruit, we've developed technologies within the social space to do things like access to energy really effectively and cost efficiently. So pico-solar systems, which are individual solar systems that are put onto houses for people that live off the grid, also microgrids, and then grid expansion, which takes a little bit longer. We have the technology to help the 1.8 billion people that don't have access to energy. We could do that tomorrow if there was enough capital. So it would probably take, if there was enough capital available, I would estimate it would take 6 to 12 months to get every single person in the world access to energy. And there would be continuity, the ability to pay would be an issue. Access to water is another one of those. We have the technology. And so there's some in the goals that don't require the solving of wicked problems. So things that are relatively simple. When you start getting into things like education, it starts to become more of a wicked problem. How do you educate a child that doesn't have enough to eat? How do you educate a child that has FAS, that has fetal alcohol syndrome? How do you educate a child that was malnourished so that their brain developed differently, which is something called stunting, which we have around 25% in South Africa on average of children have some sort of stunting in their brain because of malnourishment. So some of those are not roll out a bunch of technology and we'll fix it, but they're technologically enabled. So what is interesting around using things, technology like the blockchain and artificial intelligence, is it can make the things we're already doing a lot smarter. And on the blockchain side, a lot more distributed. So a lot of the things that we're trying to do rely on a person-to-person, peer-to-peer, or a very distributed basis. So 1 million children across 100 countries. And so I think right now, the way the 1.0 version of social businesses worked was using technology, but still in a very conservative and traditional business structure. And so what we're seeing going forward is that the use of technology to be able to deliver services in a distributed and intelligent manner probably will transcend traditional business structures. And I think that's what I'm seeing. So there's these kind of pretty easy roll out the technology. We could do universal basic income and essentially eradicate extreme poverty if there was enough capital available, and there is. We could do access to energy, we could do access to water, we could do some of the kind of relatively simple ones, but then the complex ones are going to need very complex technologies, but also a lot of understanding of local communities, and that's where the distributed nature of the blockchain gets really interesting. So empowering individual communities to do conservation, to do things like life on land and sustainable fishing. Instead of having a top-down approach, you can suddenly start to build things completely from the bottom up. Like, the interesting thing about blockchain for me is that it allows you to really do bottom up. So if a community wants to protect their fish in a specific way, they can roll out that intervention. It is not an intervention, it's them managing the fish in potentially a relatively new or very old way. And the outcomes marketplace that I'm wanting to build and in the midst of building would allow funders to pay them via individual digital wallets. So you could pay individual villagers to be sustainably fished, and then what you would use is a satellite imagery that had an AI-enabled protocol that was able to say, there are X number of fish in this specific area today. there are now, 10 months later, or even 2 days later, there are X number of fish. And so you could pay a community into individual wallets based off of the success of an intervention that wasn't a nonprofit coming in and doing something differently. So I think that's where these last mile problems are going to need to be distributed, and satellite imagery, I think, is going to play a role in, 50 to 70% of them. I mean, it's the easiest way to be able to understand if something's happening.
I just want to quickly comment on that. Actually, when I was at Geneva, Switzerland, they were talking about putting all the infrastructure in place so they can actually store and manipulate these kind of satellite images. So that's awesome. Well, there's quite a bit of money that's being invested into that. So that's going to play a big role. Nick, if we can just quickly from your perspective, Expo, how do you think about sustainable development goals in terms of what you are busy with as well?
Yeah, I think we're certainly acting as a voice and a platform for organisations that are doing these things. So Zindi will be officially launching at our event. We're very pleased to be doing that. I think the freeing humans up to do more productive stuff, if you can use it in a very high level way, will be a benefit of some of these technologies, so we can focus on more impactful behaviour, both in business and in sort of social environments. But I think, I'm trying to get ministerial presence at our event, which is not easy, because I think, as you said, you can throw technology at a problem, and more often than not, it's not really a technology problem that's needed. It's actually a fundamental change in thinking around things like red tape, local bureaucracy, personal agendas, politics, or no politics, as in no government or leadership. So I think part of the progress in these initiatives is a discussion around how do we remove some of the barriers to progressing some of these initiatives, because it's one thing talking about it at the World Economic Forum and then going into a village to help people with a personal wallet, which is all good, but then if someone locally decides that it doesn't fit in with their agenda, then the whole thing falls apart. So I think having a broad church of people that can have that debate would also be an important aspect to this, and I think we're trying to act as a forum to do that. So yeah, that's something I think we need to think about as well.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're going to deal with very heavy topics here, so I'd like to ask the audience a quick question. If someone can get me a beer, that would be fantastic.
John.
Who else wants something to drink, by the way? Wine, glass of wine, John, just quickly. Bonnie, do you want something?
I need a blanket.
Somebody with a blanket? Okay, what about you?
Oh, I think there's a question here.
Water, just, yeah, as well.
Jacques, I think there's a question in the audience.
Okay. That's good. We want to get the audience.
My name is Oliver.
Oh my goodness, I actually have a slide.
Yes. Sorry, go for it.
That is amazing. Thank you. I'm literally shivering. I'm so cold. Alright, I'll take a picture. Yes, we're listening.
Sorry.
Okay. I just want to say before I ask my question, it's a little bit cold now. My name is Oliver and I'm from Stellenbosch magazine. It's a division of On the Globe marketing and advertising company. I just have a comment or maybe a contribution to what you say, Nick. In terms, are you saying that is it difficult to get the ministerial people or speakers from the government? And if it's yes, I would like to see you afterwards. I can be able to help.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it's more a case of talking to the right people. It'll probably be a last minute thing. So, yeah.
Okay, I would like to engage with you afterwards. I can be able to help.
Thank you very much for that. You want to say something else or not? Okay, I'm going to get to Peter and then just go this way. I just want to say, there's some talking about government, there's recently on YouTube, there's a session, there was an AI hearing in Congress, US Congress, that's been published, made available. And the people that was participating there was the director of OpenAI, there was Dr. Fifi Lee from Stanford University, and there was also a government representative, but they had some really interesting perspective about the power of AI for good. They talked about various things. So I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen it? I'm actually going to post on LinkedIn. I'll post a link to it. It's absolutely worthwhile. It's about 2 hours or something, but it's worthwhile listening to them as well. There's a lot of great content. And even last year there was also hearings, there was 3 actually, where they informed the US Congress about a lot of stuff around AI. But this particular one was very interesting, so it's worthwhile. And I think we need that kind of conversation with all the stakeholders, with government as well. So I know Cyril Ramaphosa talked about these various initiatives, but he talked specifically about the 4th Industrial Revolution. I met with the guy that's on BRICS that's driving that, so there will be discussions, and there are knowledgeable people there as well. But anyway, so there's many things there. Just quick going back, so we talked about satellite imagery, and I referenced that as well. And I know, Peter, you've been quite involved, because I know at previous MIIA events we've spoken about that. So if you want to maybe talk about that, because it's AI using that, so please elaborate.
Okay, so basically for the last 15 years, most of my work revolves around satellite imagery. Basically under the water component, or water engineering aspects, water resource modeling, specifically in Africa. So that entails basically determining where to build new dam sites, hydropower stations, sustainability of water, basically to people, and 90% then revolves around access to satellite imagery and LiDAR imagery and DTMs. That data at this stage costs a fortune. So we need to somehow unpack and unlock the cost of that data at the moment. Specifically where there's either government organizations or private consultancy firms that we normally buy the data from, where they start actually having to open up their data. To me, basically what it should be is a portal where we can access that information and get like Google and AWS and Amazon on board, where they give us processing time to actually start analyzing the information basically, and being able to do POCs on quick scale, run around, get the collaboration of people within Africa and South Africa to prototype basically solutions for Africa. I mean, we've had numerous ideas already, but are blocked just by capital. We just don't have the capital and resource to be able to do it.
That's a great example to your point of ways in which corporates can be involved with the SDGs. I think one of the things that the things that start getting people's attention, right, is all these studies are coming out. If we don't do this, it's going to cost X trillion dollars. If we don't do this, this is going to cost us. So that starts to get. There's a great cartoon that is like 2004. Climate change is going to ruin the world, and it's everyone at WEF on their phones, not really paying attention. I don't know if they're on their phones. It's 2004. They probably weren't. And then it's like 2016. Climate change is going to ruin the world's economy, and everyone's like, it finally got everyone's attention. And I think that figuring out ways that corporates can do things that where they see the connection to their bottom line is important. And I think that's where things like the need for satellite imagery and just saying, listen, we need to be able to do this. You need to club together. You need to drop the cost. You need to allow researchers that are working on specific SDGs to be able to use this is a really concrete way to say to corporates, this isn't actually costing you anything. You're just foregoing, a few profit dollars, but this is going to have huge impacts on what you do going forward. If you can't get water in Amazon, if we had run out of water, what would they have done for their how many ever hundreds of employees here?
Exactly.
Chris, do you want to comment on Sustainable Development Goals and AI for business?
I suppose I should, considering I'm on the panel. So let me talk a little bit about health, because I'm on the health sciences campus at UCT, and I engage with some of the psychiatrists, psychologists, clinicians there. And there's been really cool developments with AI for analyzing healthcare data and also and then the type of data it's analyzing. So really cool computer vision based ones are pictures of pulmonary disease, so lung disease, and analyzing whether they have like infection, basically TB for example. And the challenge with AI, especially with computer vision, is, I mean, a lot of these are trained on something called ImageNet with millions of images, right? But now you have a sample size of 100, and you have patient data, so you can't just use everyone's, right? So I think, I think a platform needs to come into play where patients can opt in to share their data to ultimately enable this AI to be trained across different cohorts as well, because some of these methods, these don't have to be advanced neural network methods either. Even support vector machines, machine learning method. This is like what they use in psychiatry, and it works really well because there's such low amounts of data, right? So but then what they'll do is it'll be per country or per city. And now something that you've developed that works for Cape Town won't work for Johannesburg because of weird peculiarities that you didn't pick up. Or something that works in Northern European countries aren't going to work in Africa at all because of weird genetic differences, right? So I think more needs to be done in terms of actually getting good quality data that's shareable. But also, the algorithms themselves are also being rapidly developed in order to overcome these limitations, right? So even though you would need a few thousand images typically for a neural network computer vision mechanism, you can augment the data in various complex ways in order to try get something that's better. So you hack around a bit and hopefully it works out. But I also want to talk about the access to healthcare as well. And they've already started piloting tech projects in general. And I'm pretty sure they use some rudimentary AI to prioritize people in a hospital setting. So normally you have to wait a few hours at public hospitals. And then if the time runs out, then you go home and you hopefully get back in the queue earlier tomorrow. But now a few systems are coming out where they're actually trying to basically prioritize people better and also make sure that they're informed all the steps of the way. Because a large barrier to technology is people's understanding of it. So it's all well and good saying this will help you, but if they can't see the benefit or if they don't understand what it's doing, it's a black box. That's a term thrown around a lot. If it's a black box, then they're often afraid of it or they don't want to deal with it. And this is applicable to most people. The tech industry, I'm aware many people here are riveted by tech. We're kind of the exception, but there's proportionally few of us compared to the rest of society. So we just have to bear in mind those sorts of changes. One final thing on something called VULA.
Yeah. Very good, please.
Yeah, so they do eye inspections for using a smartphone with a greater camera for rural communities, and then those can be analyzed or sent back to a person in the city who has better resources. So, but what's going to be happening with these advanced AI techs is it won't have to be sent back necessarily, and it obviously depends on the domain. You get the app that can detect skin cancer, for example, to a relatively high degree, but you kind of need a doctor's opinion if your camera resolution is really low. But these sorts of technologies, I think, are going to be very empowering for access to healthcare and also the analysis of healthcare as well, to make that more efficient and people more eager to engage and not be so afraid of healthcare and algorithms that are analyzing all their data. People are surprisingly precious about their DNA. We're not that good at cloning. So I think that's what 23andMe does.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. That's great. Just touching on some of questions. Priority.
I think my question is more on the geospatial design. So, just the background for South Africa essentially is metropolises, Durban, Joburg, and Cape Town, where majority of our population is concentrated there, and it causes spatial issues, which I think it's a main cause of poverty. And my question is more around how can we then use the geospatial design or the AI to then fix those kind of issues, and maybe expanding economic zones outside of just those three metropolises, maybe looking at agricultural methods and way that you can use to create economic zones outside of those countries, those provinces, and then maybe on the industrialization front, looking at warehousing, how can you then create opportunities using space in order to drive the economy, essentially.
You want to take that one?
I'll probably be a lot shorter than Peter. He seems really eager to go. So at Numberboost, we actually have a geospatial tool, and one of our clients, we basically had insight that they would go into a town if they had a pet store. And that was the approximation for, was it economically built enough to have a pet store, then they could have this other product that we were doing. So there's a whole bunch of like different approximations that you can have and relationships you can have. And a weird one is current systems kind of do, if it has this here and our system works, then if it has it there, then our system probably also works. There's a whole bunch of like middle ground between that you can't infer by direct comparison. So you kind of have to go to this like advanced vector space or manifold where you start to interpolate between them. I apologize if this doesn't make sense, but pretty much what you do is you find properties rather than actual data points, right? So what do these data points have in common? What do these data points have in common? And then find another place that has most of them in common but not necessarily the same, and then implement it there. And it's most likely going to work even though it's not exactly the same. There's enough similarity in this weird abstract space that you can actually apply these things. But a lot of it isn't being done now because you kind of see like it needs to have physical components, and projecting to this extra space I think would be very advanced. And they already do it in other sorts of domains, but I think adding it to geospatial would be very beneficial.
Okay, so a lot of my work also involves around urban planning. Colleague still that also sitting in the audience as well basically is a geospatial engineer at Oregon. And we have developed basically quite a few modules for urban planners. We run large-scale mass projects, so it's formalization of informal settlements throughout South Africa. And we've developed basically, it's called service area analysis capabilities, where we analyze the infrastructure within the surrounding settlements and determine the viability of formalizing that settlement or the relocation of the individuals within the area. So we actually analyze each individual social facility within the surrounding area plus the infrastructure, and look at the population basically and growth going forward. So it's not solely just looking at the sense of just building a new house, it's about the viability of sustainability of those individuals living in that area. So it's through South Africa, so it's not just the metropolitans. We work basically through all the municipalities in South Africa, so it's also agricultural, very small, it's basically settlements out on the outskirts of urban areas. And we analyze that impact using spatial information basically to derive what is sustainable for those people living in that area and sense of economic growth.
There's also some really interesting work being done. So satellite imagery can actually give you the health of the soil when we're talking about agricultural perspective. And so there's some interesting projects that are kind of in early stages to be able to reward farmers that are essentially upgrading, whether it's specific agricultural or floodplains, things like that, where you're doing the work that needs to be done for the soil, and then you can actually look to see if that's being done, and then pay on an outcome basis, which is something that we're working on. And so just to get to the power of how do you do this type of planning, to be able to get that type of data in the hands of people that could use it potentially on a local basis, is something that Peter was talking about is so expensive, and so people that could use outputs of this data to be able to make the types of decisions that you were talking about, changing supply chains, changing how urban density works, often they just don't have access to the data. So what needs to happen is not just that access, but then also the visualization of that data to be able to, for individual, whether it's government or non-government stakeholders, to be able to make decisions that are the best informed decisions. And right now we just don't have enough access to that yet, but all of the things that you were suggesting are things that should be backed up by the type of geospatial data that exists. It's not really visualized in a way for people to make decisions.
Another important factor to consider is that you are correct that the metropolitans at this stage basically have far more superior spatial information than the smaller municipalities. And there's lack of capacity. They just don't have the capacity or support which we as a community need to start offering basically as a means of being able to give them that access to that information and basically creating an environment where we can store that information in an open source environment. So it's not closed up, scaled up for the project and then lost and having to rebuild again on the next appointment from us as an engineering consultant basically. So we're constantly having to reproduce data from scratch year after year for the smaller areas because just lack of maintenance. We'll do the project, we hand over, but unfortunately it collapses at that point. It doesn't carry on.
Before we take the other question, I just want to get Helga in as well. So just Helga, from your perspective, I know you've been doing some really interesting data science work in financial services sector and insurance and all sorts of different things, but can you maybe just talk about AI for business and things that you are doing? And also if there's any reference to sustainable development goals, you're most welcome.
Sure. Be brief. Much like you, I've kind of dedicated my career to data science and to artificial intelligence. And the reason I've done that is because I think it's a technology with immense amount of potential to solve a lot of important problems and help a lot of people. At the end of the day, I think that's what technology is kind of to do, and to make our lives easier. So if I don't have to drive my car anymore myself, then that frees up my mind to think about sustainability problems, focus on my family, or read books or anything. And I think the interesting thing there is kind of AI is sort of a software discipline, and I usually think about it in terms of sort of economics of software. Software have a tendency of just driving prices to absolutely nothing. So think about communication, for instance. It used to be very expensive to make calls, especially if you wanted to do abroad. With technology, that cost has come down. We had SMSs, which were more expensive. With instant messages and WhatsApp and things, we can now message anyone in the world. It costs absolutely nothing, and we can do it as much as we like. So I think if we can have a similar thing happening in, say, healthcare, where everybody gets access to excellent healthcare, the best you can buy today, at a very low cost, and AI can contribute to that, I think that would be a very good thing. Same thing with education. We know these things are massive problems, where a lot of people don't have access to very good healthcare and education, and those that do have to pay a lot for it, and it's only available to those who can afford it. So I think that's definitely where